Chapter 4. Renvara's Fate. A Simple Observation. Dr. Rosen was probably the only man on the planet Renvara who was a doctor because he was curious about things. Not so much things in general, specific things. Things that went click. Things that were old. Things that were not of his world. To his dismay, there were not many other who were curious about the truth to their planet's past, and studying the past as much as he had, he was the only one qualified enough to explore and understand things that were of the old empire. It tore at him each time something of the past was discovered. The wastefulness of what once was made the present that much harder to live with. How can a society that had built such wonderful devices and structures just throw it all away with war and annihilation? It did not make any sense, at least to those who had lived for hundreds of years after the fact, carrying on the seeds of life without much else to go on. All they truly had was a broken desert world that provided very little to survive.
"We're almost there," the driver yelled to him.
The loud, high-pitched noise coming from the transport engines made it difficult to hear, but Dr. Rosen nodded in approval. He glanced about the battered insides. It was old, older than all the people of the city combined, and then some. But it worked. After months of tampering, tinkering, and just a little bit of luck, he had gotten some of the old transports running. To his amazement, they not only ran, but provided small amounts of energy to other devices equally as old. He pulled out one of the little devices that he had used as a paperweight for many years. At least until one day, not too long ago, after fixing one of the transports, the device came to life. To his surprise, it started pointing out toward all of the objects that were of the old empire. They were even colour-coded for distinction. He gathered that the green ones were the transports. Blue meant ruins or older structures that still maintained some sort of form. Purple meant that there was a structure of some kind, but now you were lucky to find anything of use. But one colour scared him, as he had never come across it before. Just hours ago, 2 red marks appeared upon the device, both blinking as if there was something urgent about what they were, but he could not tell as of yet. Overseer Phalion thought it wise to send out 2 transports to investigate each anomaly. Dr. Rosen picked this one because of the massive blue mark that sat alongside of the red one. He hadn't ventured this far out from the city of Valanice in almost 10 years. His tired old body just couldn't take much more of the long trips across the vast, arid deserts of the world. But this one made for a unique and rather exciting exception. The doctor leaned up to talk above the whining engines. "Did you say they found 2 people at the site?" "Yes," the driver nodded. "A man and a woman. They didn't seem hostile, but Phalion doesn't want to take any chances." Dr. Rosen peered out toward the oncoming dune in their path. He was hoping he could catch a glimpse of whatever they were about to encounter before they got there. The anticipation of the red dots was building. Rosen was put off by the overseer, who insisted on sending armed security transports ahead of the research transport. The reasoning was to make sure they were not putting him into harm's way, but it still made Rosen feel even older than he was. "Any word from the other transport?" he asked, securing his tan-drab hat to the top of his grey hair. "All communications were lost just before they arrived at the location indicated on the device," he replied. "They could have hit a windstorm or an electrical storm. It seems as if those kinds of things still hamper this old junk." Dr. Rosen smiled. "What you find as junk, my good man, I call treasure." The driver laughed, for only an elder could find uses for the ancient technologies. Nothing that had been found yet did anything to provide sustenance for their struggling people. Only more painful reminders of who they once were. The transport continued to glide along the path of sand. The dips and dives over the dunes were becoming a bit too much for the elderly passenger. He put a hand to his stomach, trying not to lose the meal he had before their abrupt departure. The last thing he wanted to do was make a mess over his only matching pair of khaki shirt and shorts. After a few more thrilling rushes of speed, the high-pitched noise of the engines began to fall. The transport was slowing down. Dr. Rosen looked up once again, his eyes growing large from what lay before them. There, at the bottom of a tall dune, were several spires that shot out of the sandy ground. A greenish dome was centred among them, also buried deep as well. Whatever structure this used to be, it had to be enormous. Its prominence was only displayed by those parts that had yet to surrender themselves to the sands of time. Rosen stood up, his old legs wobbling just as they came to a stop next to a small encampment. The security team that had arrived earlier began to make their way toward the transport. Dr. Rosen stared in awe, ignoring the men and contemplating what kind of structure this could have been years ago. The driver got out. The guards addressed him, reporting in their update on the current situation. Dr. Rosen was oblivious to them, even as one of the guards approached him from the side. "Dr. Rosen?" The old man nodded, not taking his eyes away from the scene. "The prisoners want to talk with you." Dr. Rosen shot a bewildered glare at the guard, his eyes changing from curious wonder to mild annoyance. "Prisoners?" he exclaimed, patting down his glistening short white beard with a cloth. "I've told Phalion time and time again, no unnecessary hostilities. There are only 2 of them, right? I was told that they were compliant and unarmed." "Yes, well, the female isn't being very cooperative," replied the guard. Dr. Rosen sighed. Ever since the discovery of the red dots, everyone was unnerved by what they could be. It just led him further to believe that they were indeed descendants of an ill-fated race. Rosen nodded and waved for the guard to lead on. After a short walk down the dune, a curious type of vehicle appeared before him, one that he had never seen before. Rosen looked down at the small tracking device. It was pointing straight at the ship. "Amazing!" he gasped. "This is what the devices were picking up?" "Yes," replied the guard. "It seems that red either means hostile or foreign." Rosen was pondering the idea if it meant both, but he was not going to tell that to anyone just yet. They walked around the sleek white craft to the other side before they came upon 2 worn-out-looking people sitting along the shaded side of it. It wasn't as if there was a lot of shade, but judging by their clothes, they weren't looking very comfortable with it either. "Oh my!" exclaimed the old man, his faded hazel eyes peering at them. "Are you 2 all right?" The younger man on the ground looked up at him. The woman remained oblivious to all around her. Her head was sunk down, hair hanging over her face. "That all depends," said the young man. "Are you in charge around here?" Dr. Rosen nodded. "Yes, I guess I am in charge here at the moment," he replied. "Do you require something? There is so much I would love to ask you, but I see that you are in need of refreshments maybe. Water? Food?" "Water would be nice," the young man replied. Dr. Rosen turned to the guard, motioning for him to gather provisions. "So tell me," asked Rosen, thinking for a second. "My word, I suppose you do have a name now, don't you?" "Devon," the young man replied, "and this is my compatriot, Uriah." The old man looked over at the woman once again, but she remained still, even at the mention of her name. Well, yes," fumbled the old man. "I guess you have as many questions for me as I have for you, then. Once you're refreshed, we'll begin to talk. In the meantime, I would love to get a better look at this structure here." Devon perked up at the mention of investigation. "If you wouldn't mind, could we join you? I've been a bit curious about it myself since we arrived." Dr. Rosen stood, surprised by the notion of company during an exploration of ruins. "Well, I suppose, yes, I can't see why not," he replied. "No one's ever wanted to come with me on my little jaunts through history. Well, willingly, at least." Devon was relieved. as he began to think that they would finally be getting somewhere. He turned to Uriah with feelings of excitement beaming from his eyes. "I'm staying here," she replied, her voice soft and emotionless. Devin's heart fell at her lack of interest. He thought she, of all people, would be thrilled to find a way to leave this place. "Don't you want to see if we can get out of here?" He put his hand on her arm. She flinched. Uriah's head jerked up to look at him. Devin noticed her eyes were wide with fear. Whites and light blues were staring back at him. "I'm sorry," he replied, removing his hand. Her eyes cringed as she turned away. "Just let me know if you find out anything. I'm just tired." "All right," he replied, standing up to join Dr. Rosen. "A sensitive one she is," said the old man as they turned to leave. Devin sighed. He gave her one last glance to see if maybe she would change her mind. "I think maybe she's been through more than you or I could possibly imagine," he replied. The doctor shrugged, noting that it seemed like a reasonable observation. The two walked around to the other side of the craft. Uriah looked up, catching their forms before they disappeared. A strange feeling overwhelmed her from Devin's accurate depiction of herself. She knew that even he could never imagine her life as it was, but then her thoughts began to change. Her mood lightened. The deep purples that encompassed her troubled vision slowly changed to a rose colour. How can someone, even a human, make that kind of an observation? How could he tell so much about me, yet know so little? Uriah pondered on his words for a few more seconds before she settled her thoughts and closed her eyes once again, the corners of her lips rising ever so slightly.